Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Tim Gillette Show. I am your host, Tim Gillette. Today, we've got to interview some of the coolest people on the planet. Today's guest, Reena Watts, is, believe it or not, one of those coolest people. Actually, I'm not sure where we found each other or how we got connected, but I know we did. And I know once I went and checked out just a little bit, enough to be dangerous to know a little bit about what she does. She's got a cool podcast. So I'm sure she'll tell us about that as well as other things she does, what her purpose is behind this. We're going to have fun, I can tell you that. But she is one of the coolest people on the planet, and we're going to get to know her better today. So you guys ready for this? I'm ready, I think. Reena, right?
Yes, you nailed it.
I nailed it, all right? Once I got one thing right this week. Tell my wife, will you, that I got one thing right? So, Reena, how are you and where are you coming from today?
I am doing awesome, and I am in Chicago.
Chicago. Like my wife loves Chicago, all right? She's had, I'm not sure if they got stores now, but her former company had a lot of stores up there. She was always up there. And she always used to say, I love Chicago. You got to come visit. So I'm like, it was 2018, and she was down by the river, downtown by the river. And she's like, yeah, come on up. All right. It's May. You know what I mean? The weather will be nice. So I come up and it snowed the whole weekend.
That's crazy.
I know. Like, first of all, you guys like May, you kind of done with snow, but like, I'm thinking like we can walk down the, on the riverfront. Yeah. Nope. Snow.
Whoa. I'm not surprised though. I mean, Chicago weather is very unpredictable.
I used to say, Texas, we're unpredictable, but at least we don't get snow and ice. And apparently that's not true anymore.
Yeah, you guys weren't prepared for that.
We're never prepared for cold weather when it comes down here. It sucks all the way around. So, well, how long have you been in Chicago?
This stint, about 9 years. It is my second time here. I lived in Chicago right out of college for 2-3 years, and then I moved to LA, and yeah, it's been very roundabout. Now I'm back here again.
I think you're better than LA. You know what I mean? I go to LA a lot. I don't know if I'd ever want to live there anymore. Yeah.
It's fun in your 20s.
Yeah. Nah, it's not so. As you get up to your 40s and 50s, it's not so much fun. And I used to love going to the beaches out there, but like the beaches, like, it's kind of gross to go to now. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually met my husband on Venice Beach, so yeah. I have a fondness for that location.
I was trying to buy early, like 2012, 2013, I was trying to buy a condo out there. And we were on one of the canals. All right, great place. Probably was going to be like $250,000, $300,000. So it was a one-bedroom, small condo. Would have been a great house to have when I go to California. And I'm like, nah, I'm going to wait to see what the economy does. Because, we're just coming back from dips everywhere. And I wished I would have bought it because that same condo is worth almost $2 million now.
Yeah, I was going to say 250 to 300 is an absolute steal. You could never find that now.
Yeah, not going to find that out there now. It's like, but like here, we have the same size condo we got here in Dallas that is now one of our rental units for $70,000. I just have had, I've got like, because it's a rental unit, and I like, the guy's a musician who stays in it. It's a friend of mine. And I actually have people calling me, offering me something for it. And I'm like, no, just not. Oh, I love it. You have company.
Yeah, I just put it on mute for a second. That's the life of a mompreneur. It's funny because I was thinking, I'm like, I wonder, you never know what's going to happen in the background, right? Like I'm a mom of 4, so.
Wow. 4, all right. You don't look like old enough to have 1. Like a young kid to me. Yeah, anyway, yeah. No. Well, I want to find out, Reena, about this podcast that you have. All right, I seen this like thing, and it's like what is it? What's it called? Like Better Call Daddy. What's this podcast even about? I gotta ask.
Yeah, so the podcast is an interview show where I use my casting chops and my love of finding a good story. So I pick the guests, I interview the guests, I edit them down, and then I share each story with my dad. Then afterwards, my dad chimes in with his wit, his sarcasm, and his wisdom. Hence, Better Call Daddy.
Oh my God. I wish. Now, I interviewed my mom a couple weeks ago on my podcast. And you know what I mean? First of all, I mean, it was weird to do, but I'm like, as I get older, I wished I would have had a chance to do this when my dad was alive, to have my dad on podcast. And I'm sorry, I was like, you know, like in my heart, like, you know, you don't know how much that floods me, because I wish my dad had just heard me what I do, read one of my books, anything like that. But you still get to share your podcast with your dad. Oh my God. I'm like choking up here. Yeah.
Yeah. So part of even why I wanted to do that was to capture our relationship and to capture the stories that he tells me and the wisdom that he wants to pass on. It's like part of his legacy, and I'm capturing that. So yeah, that was a motivator there.
That is huge. I mean, like you know, I do events here in Dallas, and my daughter in the beginning, my daughter was my event planner and ran the back of the room. She's now in her 30s, 33. No, she turned 33 this year. I have to think sometimes. She turned 33, but you know, in her 20s, she would run my event. And I started doing events when she was in her 20s. So she was always the person that introduced me. All right.
Aww.
So I have that, like all the videos of my daughter at my event introducing me. And to me, it's just like, you know what I mean? I wanted to make that special, because the biggest thing was I didn't get started in this and didn't get known on videos and everything online until after my dad had passed. So, yeah. It's like, I think that is awesome what you're doing. So,
well, I can tell you there's still ways to incorporate your dad, because my dad actually found a tape of his dad who has since passed, and my grandmother is alive. So I interviewed my grandma. We're going to cut in the tape of my grandfather, and me and my dad are going to react to that segment. So there's always ways, you know. I actually include my daughter and one of my younger sons in the transitions. You know, my daughter's like, now let's switch it over to grandpa, you know, and I'm teaching my kids how to do transitions and intros. Occasionally I'll use my daughter for an intro where she'll say, the one, the only James Altucher, you know? So it's fun. You know, I'm teaching my kids and having like an intergenerational play.
Cool. That is just wow. What made you come up with this concept? I mean, where did you think? I mean, whatever. Where did this start?
My dad has always been my biggest cheerleader and my number one support system. And what's really funny is I produced an event in LA. It was like a 350 person event. And my dad was actually in LA at the time meeting with a client from China. And I was like, hey, Dad, extend your trip. I could use a PA. I was like, can you work this event with me? Help set up all the snacks. And I was pregnant at the event. And so he was actually worried because I was like 7 months pregnant. So he was like, yeah, I'm going to help you like move the chairs, move the tables, put out the snacks. My dad is he's such a player. He's just an all hands on deck guy. He worked with his parents in a manufacturing company for about 40 years. So he's got that entrepreneurial hustle and spirit and constantly like reinventing himself. And I just felt like with what he's done in his own life and in his own business, that he had real advice that he could offer to others that would be valuable.
Yeah. And you know, like I said, we're passing on, you know what I mean, our parents' wisdom to future generations, because we want to save it. And early on in my years, before I wrote my first book, you know, I remember someone saying many a times, you know, the wealthiest place on the planet is the graveyard, because there's so many untold stories in there. And then as I got further on, you know what I mean? And I remember telling my dad for years, yes, I'm going to do this, Dad. I'm going to do this. And it wasn't until after Dad passed that I really got into doing it. And then thinking, we have the power now with the tools we have to carry on what our parents had, as opposed to like my parents and their parents. That was like the video cameras they got were like these big things they had to do home videos, you know, and now we can do it with a cell phone. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. My dad always like dreamed of working in Hollywood. You know, he did end up coming to visit me when I got out there and had a stint in Hollywood myself. And my grandfather, he did the lights on Broadway, and they always really had a fondness and talked Hollywood up like that was the thing to do. And like you said, now you can create your own show. I hired an editor so that it could be professionally edited. And now I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary. You know, I'm over 150 episodes. And from creating my own show, I just can't even tell you the opportunities that are coming my way. I'm now producing 4 other shows, and I'm doing a live shoot in person once a month. And people are asking me to help them create commercials and be guests on their show. And I'm able to interview people that I admire, people that I wouldn't connect with otherwise. But since I have a platform and since I've created a community around it, a lot of people would love to be marketed.
Yeah. And that is the one thing, podcast. I mean, I had podcasts before live streaming, which we're doing now to create the podcast. Before this stuff was along, I mean, in the early days, I was doing blog talk radio, like 2011, 12 timeframe. And I had quite a subscribership. And I remember meeting Guy Kawasaki, who was like the big person in like social media and stuff at an event. And I said, everybody else is just like, oh, hi, how you doing? And I walk up and I said, I've got this internet radio show. I'd love to interview you. Got about 30,000 subscribers. I don't know if it's something if you can do that or not. Could you? And he goes, 30,000 subscribers. Yep, I can do that. You know what I mean? Because it's like we built a platform. Now these people are, I'm right now reaching out to, I'm Facebook friends with an actress that I've like adored since she was on Friends. And I like watch a lot of her smaller projects that I love. She's been on Friends, The Sopranos, a lot of things. And I've been Facebook friends with her for years. So I sent a message saying, what's the chances that maybe she'll say yes? So I sent a Facebook message because it's the only way I know to get a hold of her, and I'm still waiting. But if she says yes, great, I have it. But if I didn't have anything, all I could be was one of those people going, I'm a big fan. So you're right. We've got doors to open now to do it. So who are some of the interesting people you've interviewed?
I was going to comment on what you said. I have a few that I'm still waiting on too.
Well, I got a story on ones that I'm waiting on. Was 2013, the month I interviewed Guy Kawasaki. I had Guy Kawasaki, Larry Wingett, and I figure who else. And I'm like, I was on a high. So I reached out to the Clinton organization to say, ask Bill Clinton if he would be on my podcast, figuring why not go for like the most popular president in my lifetime and see if he'll be on my podcast, right? And like the first email, because it's an automated email, we'll get back to you with your request real soon. We pay attention to everything. And then I got the letter saying, Mr. Clinton cannot do that. He would love to do that for you, but if he did it for you, he'd have to do it for everybody. Well, we appreciate you asking. And I'm like, most people are like, I got a rejection letter from President Clinton. I marketed that to the T.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing. I got a rejection letter from Tori Amos. I loved her, went to like 3 of her concerts growing up, knew all the lyrics of her songs. I feel like I listened to her like a very pivotal time in my life, and I was like rebelling and entering the punk rock music scene. Listened to her at summer camp. Yeah. But I got a rejection in 24 hours. So I felt like, wow, hey, my message worked. At least I got a response really quick.
I'm moving up.
Yeah. So I'm like, hey, and look, I got a rejection. Like she's not doing them right now. But then her manager wrote me back and was like, hey, I represent all of these other artists. Are you interested in any of them? I wasn't. Mm-hmm. But still, now I have that connection, that relationship. I could circle back with her, right?
Yeah. That's it. I mean, and that's doors that open for us, all right, that we ever do. But, I've looked at people like I met Dean Cain backstage at an event in Los Angeles and then was on Dean Cain's podcast. Still can't get him on my podcast, but I was on his, right? But like people are like, oh, wow, how'd you get that? Because I was working an event that a friend of mine was putting on, and I was running backstage stuff, and he was one of the speakers, and I had to be a green room guy. Go, can I get you a water? Can I get you a person? And that's how I met him and got to know him. And what I think is funny is now it's like all my friends growing up who watched when he was on TV with Lois and Clark. Was it Lois and Clark? Yeah. And like even my first wife are like all in awe of this guy. And I'm like, I know him personally now. And again, because we did something, doors open. Yeah.
So one story that I love is Evan Carmichael. I heard him on, I think, Ryan Holtz's podcast, and he was saying that he loves to be people's first guest. And I love his content. I watch a lot of his IG lives. I've read his book. I find his content to be super valuable for entrepreneurs. And so I reached out to him and I said, even though I've recorded about 30 episodes, I haven't released any of them yet. So if you let me interview you, I will make you my guest one. And he went for that. He liked that.
Yeah.
And so I felt like that was a score. I got to kick off my, season 1 with Evan Carmichael. And that was a big guest to start with. And I was able to even reach out to some sponsors and say, hey, part of the first 10 that I'm going to release is him, that guy. And so once you're able to start name dropping some bigger people, then that gets the interest of sponsors, and it also gets the interest of bigger guests.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And it's all, like I said, Bob Berg has been on my podcast here, I think 5 times now he's been on. And I remember the last time I asked him, I said, well, we got a different format now, Bob. Are you still interested in coming in? He goes, your show? Yep, I'm there. Right. I'm like, whoa, yeah. And because we have a different format than how he likes to be interviewed, but he was willing to do it because he had that relationship. And that's it. Over time, you build relationships. So people are like, yeah, I'll do it for you,
Yeah, so an example of that is I just interviewed the former CEO of Yum Brands and Taco Bell.
Oh, wow.
And after I interviewed him, I interviewed somebody last night, and she's like, I'm a rebel. I was Amazon's it girl. I've hired 10,000 people. I was like, oh my gosh, I interviewed the CEO of Taco Bell. He's a rebel. He's all about culture. Let me introduce you. So I love those kinds of connections that have happened from doing the show. And he just started his own company, and what better person to introduce him to than to somebody who's hired 10,000 people and knows how to hire at scale and knows how to hire quickly. She's very qualified and probably could be a good resource for him starting up his own company.
Yeah. And you look like the superhero now. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And if you didn't start the show, you would not have that. That's what's the unique thing is most people out there, well, should I start? Yes.
Another one, just so many come just very roundabout. Zion Clark, I just had for episode 150. He's, shooting for the Paralympics and regular Olympics in 2024. He has a remarkable story. I was back and forth with his manager for probably 6 months. And the manager had sent me 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 other guests and kept saying, he's getting ready to release a book. He's in and out of the hospital. He's training super hard. It's going to happen. And just having those relationships and staying with it and being positive and interviewing the other people he sent led to it happening. And it was a fantastic interview. And actually his girlfriend came home at the tail end of the interview, and she's like a YouTuber, and their relationship is, fresh. They've only been together 9 months, and she popped on, and they even said hi to my kids and let my older son ask him a question. He was just so lovely. So lovely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you said you've had this, a year?
Yes.
A year? Yeah. So you kind of started it around pandemic time, really?
Yes, I launched August 1st. I had recorded, though, I will say, for a couple months prior. And I actually tell people that want to start a podcast, you don't want to be up against the wall. So, one, you want to get comfortable interviewing. So I would say start interviewing people who like you, people that are your champions for you, people that you can have an easy flowing conversation with to just get practice. And then I also say it's good to have 10 in the can before you launch.
Yeah.
So you don't have to stress out an editor, or you don't have to stress out yourself. And things take longer than you think to market, to get ready, to write the summaries. There's so many steps that people don't realize. It's not really just show up and interview somebody.
Well, you'd really, I don't know. You probably look at me as the rebel because I'm an advocate huge of raw content. So all of our episodes, there's very few episodes that we've actually gone in when we put it to the audio that we cut up, edit pieces out. Most of it is, by the time it goes to audio, we do a different thing with audio than we do video. But then everything's a little bit different. The YouTube videos are a little bit different because we change them. But it's mostly raw content. And that's a thing I want, because I wanted to have that rawness about it and not because I do a lot of ums and ahs. I didn't want to pull them all out. I want to practice to get better. So looking at someone like me, you got to go, well, yeah, he's a rebel from the system. That's the rebel system.
I started taking Toastmasters recently, and there are a few words that I would like to take out as well. Yeah. And I find myself saying, and I want to take it out, but it's very to be so conscious of it.
Well, I got the main word out that they wanted me to stop doing to be on a lot of shows, and it was that started with an F, had 3 letters after it. Yeah, I took that one out. Oh my God, what an improvement I've made in my podcast.
Can you take away the explicit rating?
Almost now. Yeah, I'm almost there. I did say on another podcast, I did use a 4-letter word that's kind of like the but it's not the F-bomb. So, but that was like, I'm going to be real and raw. And I realized not so good, because there's a lot of people who won't work with you because of that. That's a sketchy line still.
What if you ask someone something that they don't want to be asked? Do you keep that in?
No, that's something that I'll go in and take out. They'll basically tell me, like towards the end, on this, at the end, I always do a recap on the show. If they always go in and say, hey, listen, could you go in and pull that one? I don't want my mom to find out about that, right? So we go in and pull that out, and then we pull them down from Facebook and YouTube, edit it out, and put it back up. Yeah.
And have you had people after the show say, I don't want this to air?
I have only ever had one person want the airing pulled down, and that was not right away. It was actually 2 years later they wanted it taken down. Did
you do it?
Yes. So I did, even though they signed an agreement that said I didn't have to. Part of my application process, which you went through, it has this, do you agree to, type stuff. But still, I want to respect them. All right. One of the things that I did was I had a video interview that wasn't done like this. It was done at an event where I interviewed a young boy who actually wrote a book at 10 years of age, and very, very popular book. And when he got into his teenage years, 13, 14 years of age, he got picked on at school because the kids at school found the video where I interviewed him. And his mother reached out to me. They're very close friends of mine, right? Trust me, this has got a good ending, all right? And they said, hey, his mother said, could you pull the video down? He's getting picked on for it. I'm like, I don't want to be picked on. I love this kid. He's like family to me. So I went in and I pulled the video down. Well, when he went to college, all the remaining copies of his books, he decided to do a sellout. I'm selling them for $1 a piece, all right, to get rid of them at his dad's event. His book was about blogging. Blogging is my number one subject. Here's the book. By the way, if you want a copy of this book that a 10-year-old wrote about blogging and how he got 30,000 subscribers as a 10-year-old, there's only one place to get this book, from me. I bought all of his remaining copies, and he signed them for me.
Aw, that's amazing.
Remember, if I would have said, no, I'm leaving the video up, do you think I'd be doing that now?
Wow.
Yeah. My first blog and video con, he was one of my keynote speakers.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that story. Yeah. My daughter actually wrote a book, and she's 10.
So basically now I got to get her in here to be interviewed, right?
Well, during the pandemic, I had 4 children home. And so I thought it was really important to get them a reading and writing tutor, because I had, an 8 and a 10-year-old. And I feel like they were at that age where they needed to stay on top of that. And I knew an entrepreneur who wanted to start a reading and writing tutoring business. So I was like, hey, start with my kids, and my daughter really took to it.
Cool.
She really took to it. And so she spent a year putting together a book, and she used my cartoonist that made the graphics for the Better Call Daddy show. So I got to support a mompreneur there. And then I got to support the entrepreneur that wanted to do her reading and writing tutoring business. I actually helped get her 3-4 other clients because I was so happy with her that I shared that we were having a good experience about it on Facebook, had her on my podcast. And we did an Amazon self-publish. And I feel like it'll be something that my daughter can talk about in college, right? She put together this book that she can be proud of, and what that was like and how hard she worked on it. And she illustrated the pictures inside the book. And then we had a professional cover made for the outside. So I'm really proud of her.
This young man, that book paid for his first car and paid for his second car, which is his college car now. He has a car at college, because his first year of college, you can't have a car. So he sold his car, and then he took and bought his second car. He's got a Jeep, and this like he's a junior in college now.
Amazing.
That's it. And his first car was like this Infinity, and I remember his parents were like, well, we were going to get him like a Honda Accord, but he's buying his own Infiniti. It's his money. We can't tell him no. He earned it.
Incredible. And I think it's just so great to encourage your kids to do what they love and
exactly.
And try projects like that.
Yeah. Your kids, because you taught your child to do that and write that book. Think about where your kid's going to be like when they're my age at 50. All right. I didn't learn all this stuff about books and podcasts and marketing and stuff like that until I was in my 40s. Imagine if I learned it when I was in my 20s. Like my daughter got to learn it in her 20s. You know what I mean? Your daughter's learning it. Your kids are learning it at 10. Imagine where they're going to be in 50 years.
I have so much fun recording intros and transitions with my kids. Now, even my younger son, my 8-year-old, wants to do it too. And I encourage them to be sassy or to have personality. And they give me ideas for reels to do on Instagram.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Kids are so creative and they live and breathe YouTube. You want a video to go well, ask them what to do.
Yeah, exactly. So well, what are some areas that you're hoping to go into with the podcast and with what you're doing? You know, that you're still like goals you have unfulfilled and stuff like that.
Well, right now, one of the biggest projects that I'm working on is called the SNF Spotlight series. So SNF, like skilled nursing facility spotlight. Mm-hmm. And I am working with a company, Renewal Rehab. They do contract therapy in nursing homes, and they put together a podcast during the pandemic to highlight owners and operators, directors of rehabilitation, nurses, all the frontline workers, and paint the nursing home in a positive light. Yeah, so my part in that is I'm connecting with the people on LinkedIn. I'm pre-screening the guests. I'm helping create the scripts, and I'm supervising the whole thing being put together. So we have a 3-camera shoot. And I have my editor piped in, and, the host wears the earpiece, and I communicate with her, and we brief him through asking all of the questions, restating them if need be, and we package it all together from concept all the way through production and post-production. And so I'm really enjoying that. It's local here in Chicago, and I never thought I'd work in the healthcare industry, so I'm getting a total education doing that.
Wow. It's just interesting what the pandemic has got us doing, isn't it? I mean, like, first of all, I knew live streaming because I was in the Blab days. I don't remember back then, but that's where I got into live streaming and, using Zoom for my meetings. I've been using Zoom for my mastermind meetings since 2014. And as soon as the pandemic hit, my coach called me and said, okay, I need to learn how to use this Zoom stuff and stuff like that. And I had to teach him because he'd never done it. And, this was the guy who's like, well, I do live events. I don't do virtual events. And oh my God, did his tune change when he couldn't? And we don't know what we're going to learn until we have to.
Yeah, so I was helping do some event productions, and I was working with influencers, and I was helping them get sponsors for their events, and I was helping with all the event coordination behind the scenes. I actually recently got asked to do that again. Mm-hmm. But, like I said, I'm a mom of 4. I only do 1 in-person shoot a month, and okay. I do it back to back where we do like 7-8 interviews in a row, and then I release them 1 a week. I am trying to do limited exposure. I'm not yet ready to be in a crowd of 1,000 people and doing all of that right now.
Yeah.
So I feel like the podcasting and the live streaming is something that I'm focusing more on right now. Yeah, I totally shifted my business. But, what else is really interesting is I started off my career as an intern at the Jerry Springer Show, and I worked my way up from intern to producer in 1 season. I learned all the roles. I went from intern to associate producer. So I went from entertaining the guests, bringing them around Chicago, learning my way around Chicago with the guests, to booking the guests, to briefing the guests, to being backstage in the green room like you talked about, to getting them on stage, to tucking them into the limo afterwards and keeping up with them. And then I moved to LA, started all the way over, worked as an executive assistant to 3 very well-established producers because I knew no one. So I went from producer to executive assistant.
Mm-hmm.
Then I became a field interviewer, an assistant editor, a post-production supervisor, an associate producer. I've worked so many different behind the scenes positions that all of that has really stacked up on itself and lent itself to what I'm doing now.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, because like, the journey you've taken, and, I did catch a little bit about that. I was going to ask about your time on Jerry Springer, because like that was a show that like I could watch so much of it. And after a while, I was like, okay, I'm done with this. I don't take the serious bad drama type stuff. And after a while, I get sick of it. But you were there for how many years did you work on the show?
I was there about 2.5 years. I was there for 2 entire seasons, and then I produced the season opener of the 3rd season. And then I honestly think burnout. I don't think I called it that at the time, but yeah, you can only hear so much of that before it just feels like it's your entire life. You're like, are there any relationships that actually work out? I was living and breathing that show to the point where it really wasn't healthy for me. And so I was like, okay, I've gotten myself into the Producers Guild. I've produced the number of shows that gets you into the Producers Guild, where I can actually apply for other roles now.
Yeah.
And I wanted to work on other content.
Cool. Because it is, and I see it's quite a difference than like, a very positive show you have now versus a very, shall we say, sketchy show that you started out with. And is that something that kind of drove you to go, I don't want to be that, so I want to create a show that's this?
What's interesting about that is I do have a fascination with stories like that, but I feel like they can have a different ending, right? So I have interviewed a murderer. I have interviewed a Jeffrey Epstein survivor. I have interviewed someone who tricked a guy into impregnating her. Mm-hmm. But the part I like is that it doesn't have to be about tearing each other apart. It can actually be about what you've overcome.
Yeah. And it's also, though, it's like some of the audience that watches that is the audience. It's the audience that gets weird. Like my coach and my friend is Craig Duswalt. I don't know if you know Craig or not. Craig used to be Axl Rose's manager during the biggest Guns N' Roses tour. And when he got out of it, he's a very positive guy. The reason he got into the music industry was he was working backstage in New York, and one of the managers of Air Supply thought he was a positive and upbeat guy and hired him to be their backstage manager. And from there, he got working in Guns N' Roses. Well, a couple years ago, he's now a very positive, upbeat guy, talks about business, marketing, stuff like that. And someone said, well, he wanted to do a traditional published book. So he told his Guns N' Roses story about being a manager and like stories from being backstage and running the job. And it was all like his stories with all this positive, upbeat, about, how this one time we, did this weird thing with a cameraman, and it was positive. Every interview he went on, they wanted the dirt. Give us the dirt on Axl Rose. And he hated it to the point that one guy interviewed him, he flipped out on him. He's like, he couldn't take it anymore. And now he says that he wished he would have never done the book, because it is like us who know him. We know he's a positive guy. We wanted to hear his positive stories. But he said there's a reason he got out of that was, and it's probably why you got out of Jerry Springer, was it is a negative, like really dirty, miry type job. And he's not that person, and he didn't want to be that anymore. Is that the type of environment it really is backstage? Or is there some people just going, yeah, this is just a job?
I've even heard Jerry himself say that this was not my dream.
Yeah. Really? Well, wasn't Jerry? Didn't Jerry do some other stuff like in politics and stuff?
Yeah. He was an Emmy-winning newscaster, and he wanted to work in politics. Yeah, and he's a smart guy. He actually has a podcast now too, and he has a new court TV show. So he found a niche. Made a lot of money from it.
Well, that's it. It's a niche, and it's a niche that people, again, it's what the listener wants. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But some of us are not willing to go when we feel that crosses our boundary. You know what I mean?
Here, I'll tell you the story of like the day I left. I produced a great show.
Yeah.
It's, but a great show is like wrecking people's family, right? And a guy said to me, backstage who, this guy had opened up to me and told me his story and trusted me. I felt conflicted between like, do you know what you're getting into? And, do I care about these people? And he said to me, how can you live with yourself? That is what he said to me. How can you live with yourself? And I felt that way towards other people that have screwed me in life, right? So when he said that to me, I was like, you know what? I've done enough of it. I'm going to leave on a high note. Everybody's singing my praises right now. All the producers are happy with me. And I literally packed up with no backup plan.
Yeah.
I took the white box. I turned in my security badge. I did not have another job.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's tough. I mean, and I don't know, and guess what? Now the lawn guys are coming by outside. Have you ever seen the movie Little Black Book?
Somebody told me that actually, my story reminded them of that movie, but I haven't seen that.
Well, first of all, the actress was one of the actresses who died in early 2009 that I loved. I mean, she was just a great actress. She was that one that was in Clueless, the scruffy looking girl in Clueless, and I can't remember her name. Oh,
was it Michelle Gelman or something?
No. I can't remember her name. I don't know why.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
The unique idea of the idea, and Kathy Bates was the TV show host in that. But that concept, I looked at it and looked at her life, and like the way they showed those stories, and this is our job as storytellers, really, in our podcast, is they took that, she went through crap, all right, and she come out the other side going to work for this famous newscaster she adored, and getting to meet her and her mom's idol. All right, which was what's the Simon? I can't remember Carly Simon, right? And they had Carly Simon on the movie. But sometimes you got to look at the negative crap you've gone through with the people on the show, and go, there's an upside. You're in the downside right now. There's an upside. When you're laying flat on your back, the only place you have in life to look is up. All right, and that would be me. I would be the guy trying to tell them about all the positives and what they can do with their life now. Take this, put it behind you, and move on. But like again, I was wondering when they're there, is it like, do many of the people working there go, well, this is just a job, and they shut the emotions off from it?
I think some of the people that work there like the drama.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it takes a certain personality type to make it to the producer spot there.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of crazy in me, but you can channel that in other ways for good.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, what other businesses and stuff have you done other than being in that and what you're doing now?
Oh my goodness. So, I mean, it's been a long road. I worked as a field interviewer on an e-show. I worked for Nanny 911 for 3 seasons as a post-production supervisor. I worked for an MTV show called Motor Mouth, which was really fun, where it actually was like a karaoke show in the car, but people thought that they were doing like market research. So like, I nominated you to go drive around in this car and listen to songs, and you're supposed to fill out like a market research survey afterwards. But the thing is that you're being set up because all of the music that you're going to listen to are all of your favorite songs. And I know that about you. So when you go drive around in this car, chances are you're either going to sing or you're going to do something silly, or you're going to be feeling the music, and the entire car is rigged with cameras. And then after you go on your little gallivanting around town, I'm going to get in the car with you and encourage you to sing and dance and jump out of the car and do something crazy or sing to the person in the drive-through. So that was a really fun show. It ended up getting picked up for a 2nd season, but I didn't work on the 2nd season of it.
Wow.
So that is like a lot of my time in LA. It was like working on a pilot. Then maybe you're lucky if it gets picked up for a season, and then maybe a 2nd or a 3rd season. But it was really like kind of riding on the coattails of others. Yeah. And bouncing from show to show and hoping that, your team liked you and recommended you on to the next gig. And then after LA, I tried a little corporate stint where I worked as a program manager for a voice over IP company. And I helped, this is actually where my love of LinkedIn began, because it was my role to get people to come to these like corporate lunch and learns. And I was like, oh, wow, you can literally just type in like head of customer experience, chief financial officer. And then, at the companies that are based in Chicago and the companies that you want to attend your events, and you can connect with these people and become their friend, just like you become the friend of the people that you cast on the Jerry Springer show. You make them like you, and then they come to your events. You make them like you, then they come and tell their story on national television and take their clothes off. There was, you know what I mean? There's some similarities there. Same, it's a skill transfer, right?
Yeah.
So I did that for about a year and a half. It was downtown Chicago, and the mom juggle got a little rough because if a meeting went long and then I missed the train, then I was juggling a nanny, and I'm like, so then I looked for something closer to home, and I ended up I've really bounced from vertical to vertical. This is crazy, but I ended up working for a financial firm, and again, became a LinkedIn-aholic. All he wanted me to do was connect with CPAs, connect with financial advisors, connect with centers of influence. And I'm like, LinkedIn is an endless database of fun for that, right? Hundreds of financial advisors on there. And I become their friend. I get them to come to the steak dinner, buy these expensive insurance policies, find out about our secret formula. And so I did that for a year. But the thing is, I didn't love the financial space. I also felt like it was totally cringy, like dirty, didn't excite me. I was good at getting people to come to the party. I was good at getting people to connect with me, and I can market anything, right? You can put a lipstick on a pig, but didn't enjoy it. And so actually I met someone at one of these financial events that I was putting on who planned events for Gary Vee. And she was like, hey, I know we work well together in the trenches. Why don't you help me with sponsorships for this event? And I was like, oh, hell yeah, I want to go to a Gary Vee event. So I was like, I can do that. So she sent me like an Excel sheet with like thousands of potential sponsors. And I just worked every angle. I ended up actually booking a sponsor off of LinkedIn and cold getting a sponsor off of Twitter. And I found my way in Toronto, and my entrepreneurial journey began. And I started working in events and sponsorships and working with influencers. And again, all of these things built upon what I'm doing now.
Yeah, exactly. And it's what leads us to where we are. And it's so often some people can look at and go, well, like negative times. I can look at a ton of personal negative bombs in my life and go, well, if that bomb didn't happen, I wouldn't have found the light that changed, you know what I mean, where it was a complete turnaround. And when you're working in something like a Jerry Springer show, most people, like I said, they're only looking at the negative of the moment because it's all they've ever focused on. I
had people compare it to the porn industry. Like they didn't look at that experience as even being relevant at all. And I was like, but wait, I was managing $80,000 budgets. I was managing a team of 3. I was putting out a show a week. I was, you know what I mean? Creating scripts. Like I had to sell it in a different way.
So when it comes to the reality, like the reality TV show business, and I remember before I got into speaking and coaching where I am now, I was at a motorcycle event that a friend of mine was actually there recording his reality TV show at the time. And I stood in the background and watched it. I stood there and watched the team write the script, watched him play out the script that they were doing. And he's like, well, do you want to be part of this? I'm like, no, I'll watch. Like, I did not want to be part of it. All right. And now, like 4th of July, actually the 4th of July, I sat watching fireworks with Chris Harrison from The Bachelor and, talking about it. And Chris is like, you realize that he's big on the reality TV. He says reality TV took away from soaps because basically nobody wants to watch soap opera anymore. They want to watch real people. And he says it's no different. It's still scripted. It's just some improv thrown in, and I'm like, okay, still don't think I want to be on it. But I've had a couple friends do reality shows that want me to do a stop in, and I'm like, maybe, but I'm not doing my own reality show.
You're doing a reality show right here.
This is reality enough for me. All right. I'm positive. I'm upbeat. All right. I'm getting the questions answered, things like that. So anyway, Reena, I like to ask a lot of people when they're on my show this one question. And that is, when I was younger, like in my early 20s, I had a part-time job that I asked my boss for advice on the job. And he gave me advice on the job that became it became life advice for me. It was something that I ingrained into my own life because he told me this. And it was, you know what I mean? Just run your job, run your shift like you own this business. Because of that, I've taken ownership of everything I do. And it's what made me to be the entrepreneur I am today. When you were younger, did someone give you a piece of advice that like it drives you to this day?
Know when to keep your mouth shut is one that has stayed with me. Truthfully.
I got to write that one down. I'm 50 years old and I haven't figured that one out.
You would be surprised how effective that is.
Yeah. So that's
always.
Yeah. But that's good advice. I mean, when I was younger, I didn't do that.
Nope, me either.
I had to learn that. That was a hard lesson to learn, to go, okay, you got to know when to say it and when not to. Yeah.
Less is always more.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially in our everybody has a pulpit world right now of social media. Yeah, it is. It's really good. So, what is, you know, I mean, for anybody who's thought, I mean, I know you do podcasts now, you've worked in reality TV, you've worked in you know, network TV. What is some advice you would give to a random person who goes, well, I want to follow in your footsteps?
I would say a lot of it is relationships. You know, you need to start forming them before you need them. You know, don't wait until you get out of college to start looking for interns.
Yeah.
Internships.
Yeah.
You need to be thinking about that a couple years before you graduate, and do work that you can show people. So create something, some sort of portfolio, work on projects for experience. That first Gary Vee event that I did, I did that for a percentage of whatever money I could bring.
Wow.
So I worked 2.5 weeks, so many hours a day. And people would say, was it even worth it? Yeah, it was. I got to meet Gary. I got to be part of the media junket. I got to make huge connections at the event, which led to other sponsors sponsoring other events that I've worked on.
Relationships were huge. I mean, you made more very, very powerful relationships with that. And most people will go, when they come in, it's the people come in and go, well, how much am I going to get paid for this?
Oh, yeah.
You aren't going to get paid for this, but the relationships you make will pay for it long term. Yeah.
Also, if you're going to take an internship, even if it might not turn into a job, you want to treat that internship like it could.
Yeah.
Because that person may refer you to someone else, even if they can't hire you. Exactly. So if you sign on for something, you better give it your best. You better go all in on anything that you choose to do. And you don't have to stay there forever, but the time that you spend there, make the most of it. Because I've even had interns where if they would have showed me that they were worth hiring, I might have.
Wow.
But it's a test.
Yeah.
An internship is a test, too.
Yeah. I've never done them. But I did a lot of apprentice type work because I didn't go to college. So when I was younger, I did apprentice type works where I would go on as an apprentice. You're being paid less. You're learning on the job type deal. Same concept as, you know what I mean? You still try to do the best. All right. And as an apprentice, every time I made a mistake, I would go back with my notepad and go, okay, how do I avoid doing that next time? And I think that was what, like, many of my bosses that I've had in jobs were like, no one ever comes back. They just come back and go, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, okay, I made a mistake. How do I not do that next time? Tell me the steps to catch it before it gets there. And they were like, why do you do that? I'm like, because I don't want to repeat the same mistake. Even if you don't hire me and I move on to another company, I want to make sure that I never do that one again. The next mistake, I want to be a new mistake, not the repeated mistake.
What I've learned in entrepreneurship too, is you're going to have new challenges with each new project and with each new client. And so I actually think it's good, even if you're not going to get the same payday on each client, to be open to just taking new opportunities if you have like a good vibe with that person, because it can turn into an up level.
Yeah.
It can turn into something that you didn't expect. Like I had somebody reach out to me and they were like, can you help me with my LinkedIn profile? And then that turned into doing like 3 blog posts for her a week and then, managing her website and, helping her get a professional photographer and get more into social media. You just be open to different verticals and be open to things that you might not have entertained.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I mean, this is some great advice you've given today. And I love it that you came on and shared all this with it. And it's funny you mentioned LinkedIn. Like that is the one platform that it's like way over my head still. And wait, I don't know if in a LinkedIn space, I don't know if you know the trainers who integrated alliances. I don't know if you know them or not, but like Lori Ruff was one of the managers of or part owners of that. She was like the early 2012 timeframe. She was like the top female LinkedIn trainer in the country. Sitting at my house, she's like, you got to be on LinkedIn. She takes my laptop off of me and creates a LinkedIn profile for me. 90% of the profile you see on me on LinkedIn is what she created in 2012. Anyway.
It's a free tool. It's a communication tool. I've said this time and time again. Yeah. Whether you are blogging on there, whether you're using it to market yourself or not, it is a way that people communicate. So you have to be there. Yeah.
So it is. Every one of them is a valuable tool. It's just whether you're what you're going to view, what you do with it is how valuable it is in your life.
Yeah.
I've always said that. So
yeah.
But it is the one platform that's like, I'm still there. I still have a presence there. I still try to do stuff, but still it's like way over my head. You know what I mean? I really just need to make enough money and pay someone like you to just handle it for me because it's over my head.
Let me know. I love LinkedIn.
We may talk afterwards. So anyway. Well, Reena, what is the best website they can get more information about you and find out about everything you've got going on right now?
BetterCallDaddy.com.
BetterCallDaddy.com. Boy, I think that's the name of your show, isn't it?
That is the name of my show, and you can reach me at Reena@BetterCallDaddy.com.
Yeah. What a simplistic way, or as we say, a simple, easy way to find you.
Exactly.
So they have simple, easy marketing. Well, it has been a joy having you on here, but before you go, I have a game I play with everybody. 9 questions, this or that. I saw Sammy Hagar do it on his show, and I thought I was cooler than Sammy Hagar. So that's why I had to come up with this idea. So 9 questions. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right. Number 1, Star Wars, Star Trek. Which one?
Star Wars.
Like early Star Wars or like the newer Star Wars?
My kids like the classic.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't like even so much into either one, but I have 3 boys, so they were very into lightsabers.
I actually have one of my clients is a Disney Imagineer who's big on like doing the lightsaber experience when they got it out in California. Yeah, it was just cool. My next one here is, which would you rather listen to in the car, podcast or music?
I've gotten more into podcasts now.
Have you? What's your favorite podcast listening to in the car right now?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm going to give Brian Keating a shout out because I don't know if you've listened to him, but after I listen to his show, I feel smarter. Into the impossible.
Well, I mean, and when I asked that, it's interesting because for me, during the pandemic, Mike Rose, the way I heard it was one I was listening to. But and I never thought about this idea of whether podcast or music until I heard Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses do an interview. And he talked about after he had to quit drinking and quit doing drugs and was going to school for finances, he had to get healthy. So he would put his earphones in and listen to Jim Rome, the sportscaster. He would listen to his show, and that was the motivation to work out to. And most people are like, well, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm like, you get a podcast you like, it'll motivate you. And that motivated Duff to change his life. So, yeah. So
amazing.
Yeah, it is. Always, so it's like everybody's got a favorite that impacts them. And I know. So my next one here is all right, are you a heels girl or a boots girl?
Ooh. I would say heels.
Okay. All right. Because, I live down here in Texas, and boots down here is a totally different thing than what them snow boots are you wear up there.
Yeah.
I know you live in Chicago. All right. This is going to be a food product that may be a little different for you, but hamburgers or tacos?
Oh, tacos.
No. I'm in Chicago. I want to go to the hot dog place.
Definitely.
All right. The hot dog place. We were up there when I was there with my wife. We go in there and like there's 3 lines to get up there to order it. It's 2 levels of seating. And I'm like, this is a hot dog restaurant.
Oh my God, my kids love hot dogs.
So how about if you're having a drink, coffee or tea?
I love them both, but I'm a coffee addict.
Yeah, coffee, like espresso in the morning, green tea in the afternoon. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if you're going to the movies, popcorn or candy?
Probably chocolate.
Chocolate. Raisinets, baby.
Exactly.
Raisinets.
Or those snow caps.
Yes, that's the other good one. Like, I remember them as a kid. I loved them. So throughout the pandemic, we've gotten the luxury of not having to get dressed up from the waist up. So are you a person who's wearing a dress or yoga pants?
Right now, I am in shorts, pajama shorts.
The first virtual speech I did in the pandemic, I had my pajama bottoms on and my nice shirt and suit jacket with pajama bottoms just to say I could. And I still say whenever I get back to doing a live event and speaking, I think I'm going to show up and walk out on stage with pajama bottoms on just because. Oh, this isn't Zoom? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm with you right now.
My last 2 questions are the controversial questions that everybody has to answer. The next one being, in your house, does the toilet paper go over on the roll or under?
Over.
Over. And like you're over or over?
Over.
I've asked that one, Reena, to people who are like all love and rainbows and unicorns. And I asked that question. They're like, over. I'm like, yeah, what happened to that positive guy? I see.
Oh my God. As a mom of 4, I'm just happy if there's toilet paper on the roll.
In our house, the bathroom downstairs by the bedroom is my wife, where she wants it over. Up here, my office bathroom, it's sitting on the back of the toilet. I'm
also happy if the toilet isn't clogged.
Yes. I want to know I have it. I don't care which way it goes on the roll. I don't anymore. My last one, and I love to ask this one, even the girls get to answer it too, but boxers or briefs?
Boxers.
Boxers. Your husband is taking note, all right, and he wants to know what he needs to wear to bed tonight. No, I'm kidding.
Well, it's kind of actually a cross between, I guess, because Manscaped, he loves, are those briefs?
Boxer briefs.
They're boxer briefs.
Boxer briefs. Exactly what I wear. Boxer briefs. Yeah.
I'm telling you, they sponsored my first 10 episodes, but my dad and husband fell in love with the underwear, not the shaving equipment, but the underwear are quality underwear. Oh, and by the way, you can use BCD still for 20% off.
Oh, wow. Gonna go check that one out. Yeah. But no, it's interesting because like I had a conversation with a guy one time, 40 minutes after the broadcast was done. We're still talking about underwear we've worn over the years. And I'm like, only I could have a business podcast to talk with another guy about his underwear.
Love it.
That's how you have fun on air. So, well, I know we went a little over today, Reena. What is, again, repeat the website so people can get a hold of you and take this to the next level.
BetterCallDaddy.com. And I actually have one more website.
Okay.
It's a play off of my name.
Yeah.
Megawatts Productions. That's with an S. Megawattsproductions.com.
Cool. So I only have one website to put up, and I should have caught that one up as an extra bonus today. But anyway, I appreciate you sharing that with us. So, and I appreciate you coming by, taking time out of your schedule and being my guest today. It's an honor to get to know you.
It's an honor to get to know you.
Cool. So to you, the listeners, I'm going to tell you guys, hey, thank you for tuning in today. Be sure to go check out Better Call Daddy. Hey, it's an interesting podcast. You got to go listen to it. I'm Tim Gillette with the Tim Gillette Show, and I'll be back next week with another episode. In the meantime, guys, have a great weekend. Bye now.